Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. It's time for Week in Review with the one and only Doovid. I'm your host, Jen. Church of Edge will be happy to be here this Sunday, the 22nd of May, 2022. Looks like Doovid got his article done this week, so that'll be fun to go over. A little bit more technical, but still good, relevant historical review. Meaty parts we can go into, as well as whatever's on people's minds with regards to consciousness, physics, and the normal topics. Hand it over to you, Doovid, for the introductions. Thanks for being with us again.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jennifer. Hey, Sky Fluent, good to see you. Hope everyone had a great week. I had an exciting week this week. I'm having some construction, my bathroom remodeled at my house. So things are in a little disarray in my house, but deal with that. And I went to some trade shows this week. The Rapid Added Manufacturing Conference. I wrote my essay. I went to the Steel Show. So hopefully got some exciting things to talk about. So let me go right to screen share, get these things off my desktop using two computers like Jennifer. So I went to the Greater Steel Show. Didn't get so many views. I just popped in for a few minutes. It was more like a conference. They only had a handful of tables. It was more like breakout sessions and updates on the steel industry. But I did a quick ramble on steel. I did go. I spent more time. I gathered a whole bunch of reading material. I wrote my essay this week on the 3D printing Rapid Society of Manufacturing Engineers. In fact, that video's doing pretty good. Already has 230 views from just this Tuesday. So that was a good show. Got a lot of reading material, and we'll look at my blog post soon. So I link that on. I put on the chess server, also on Twitter. So I talked with Charles Moskowitz again this Thursday. So God forbid, my high school had a lot of drama this week. Even international news, and if you could see, like the high school biology class posted a question about primates that included President Barack Obama asking to click all of the pictures that are primates, and I guess humans, Homo sapiens, are a type of primate, but the historical racism of referring, God forbid, to blacks, Africans as monkeys,
It was so
and
progressive that it had pushed so far forward that it went back to being regressive type thing.
it's unclear. They claim it's a female teacher from the Far East, a woman of color, who put this on the lesson plan, and she said it was completely a mistake, and she had no idea it was offensive. But ironically, it's became international news. I saw it's like in Germany, Vietnam, like the CNN, uh, New York Post, Washington Post, all picked up on this story, and it's generally bad. They're claiming, like, this racist prep school compares Obama to a monkey, God forbid, and the school's in disarray. And this video, because it's a pretty like liberal, um, really a school founded on the critical theory of the Frankfurt School, which became critical race theory. So in somewhat, it's karmatically, uh, the teaching coming back to haunt the school, because the school's trying to change society, and we're supposed to be the good guys. We're the ones fighting racism, and now somehow karmatically, um, this slip, this serious mistake that a biology teacher made, that just insensitive, um, has become an international news story. So this black Republican is kind of laughing at the liberals. Woke school suspends Asian biology teacher for giving kids assignment comparing Obama to monkeys. So God forbid, um, international news. Um, I
The
was
thing
thinking,
is that at first glance here, like I just didn't even look at. I just thought this whole thing was so silly. But at first glance, it looks like it's a bunch of apes and Obama. That's what it looks like. But then upon closer inspection, it's actually a bunch of different types of animals and one human. So I guess that's what happened with that was where the confusion came from.
Um, well, I mean, there's no confusion because like it's from like a biological anthropology, and it's asking the students to click the primates, and primates includes humans. So in that sense, that you actually to get the question right, and I'm not sure if it was an online assignment, um, had to maybe they still have somewhat distant learning with COVID-19 or his homework. You actually had to click the picture of President Obama to get the question correct. And just why they use Obama. They could have used any human according to evolution, or just basic biological definition. They could have used President Trump, President Biden, me or you or anybody. But the fact that they used President Obama was considered racist, and God forbid, somehow it hit the international news, and it just keeps on. Like I keep on checking the news, and like every hour more and more papers are picking it up. Like racist prep school in Metro Detroit compares President Obama to a monkey, God forbid. So it's tough to know. We could talk about that more, but
Are you saying
that
this is your school that you went to? Just
it was the high school that
coincidentally?
I went to.
Oh wow.
That's generally like founded on anti-racism. So the people in like we're the people who are fighting racism, and now this international news story is we're the bad guys. So I was thinking this clip in Falling Down, where I'm the bad guy. Like, how did that happen? How did I become the bad guy? So this
Let's
that
not play too much of that. I don't know how long you can
I'm
have
not going to play
without
it
a
at all.
copyright strike, and people are free to go and check it out. It's pretty
Yeah, I didn't even share the link.
depressing.
I'm not playing this at all. I just picture. Um, but yeah, I mean, from the school perspective, like we're the racist, we're the anti-racist. Like this one little slip, and all of a sudden, every news, it's like international news. So God forbid, see what happens with that. Um, Hopefully, we'll talk more about this. Um, Mind chat. We talked a little bit about last week with Brian Carroll, and it was kind of low quality tier debate. It didn't flow much information, and
Well, at some
um,
point, it really falls apart.
yeah. So Philip did.
There's clearly a point where he does not understand his own position anymore, and I hate to say this, and I do think this happens for everybody, but I guess the art of public speaking is wallpapering over those gaps in understanding. That is not
So
just specifically to him.
yeah, hopefully we'll go over this again. And I put in the comment to last week's video. There's a philosophy of science, but there's no science of philosophy. And but I guess the language of strong emergence, that consciousness, if it's an emergent quality of physics, or if it's um, it has to be, from a scientific point of view, consciousness, from a materialist point of view, consciousness has to be an emergent quality. And then to say, is it strongly emergent? Is there something special about the brain that produces some unique emergent, strongly emergent quality that we refer to as consciousness? Or is it a normal emergent quality, just like information theory, and nothing special? There's nothing, like I was talking
Well, does
about.
emergent mean that the whole has properties the parts don't? That's the basic definition, or
Um, I think that the terminology strong emergence has that implication, where just emergent doesn't necessarily imply, and that's to say that the materialistic view downplays the significance of consciousness, versus you like a panpsychist or different view, even if it's a materialist uh, point of view, would say there's something unique about the brain, and it's a strongly emergent, some special scientific phenomenon. And then Philip Goff is a philosopher that consciousness is not really in the realm of science, consciousness is in the realm of philosophy.
Well, I thought
But
he said that it sort of was in the sense that science couldn't answer that question, and that it would be that there were materialist compatible versions of panpsychism. Like, I don't think he's actually narrowed it down to a set frame model doctrine type thing, because, like, I mean, you're sort of mounting speculations at some point.
yeah, well, I mean, philosophy could speculate, and I think that's why dualism. So philosophically, it's like consciousness, uh, and like empirical. What does empiricism mean? And these are philosophical questions about empiricism. Is self-reflection empiricism that we mentioned last week about Galileo, and Philip Goffin wrote in a book on Galileo's error that disconnects science from mind. But philosophy talks about these questions, and then the question: does physics have anything to add to mind? Um, and so I'm going to show some more stuff on brain research, but I thought this was interesting. So anyone who follows this issue, this response video is more better watched than the actual video itself. So the Science of Consciousness
So
Conference.
I'm sorry, did you think that video was good and worthwhile, or not really?
I thought his response video was good. I thought the video of
Gosh.
Sean Carroll that I shared also. Um, Not sure that that's so worth watching, but I thought Goff's response video was better.
Okay, great. Me too.
So they put up the planetary sessions, the keynote speeches, and over time they should add all of the stuff, which will be tens of hours of more watching. So hopefully soon I'll start watching over the keynotes. But I paid over $300 for tickets for me and Jen to watch it live, and so now, 2 months later, they're starting to put up the videos. So here's random related to the 3D printing, which they call it the do it yourself method of building, modifying, repairing things by oneself without the direct aid of professionals or certified experts. Going back to ancient Greek, and part of like 3D printing, that you could make things yourself. You don't have to be an engineer. You could buy yourself a 3D printer. And I mentioned, because it mentions doing things without expertise, and even my ramble I mentioned at the conference that conferences like Masonic Order or the Royal Society of Sciences bring together experts, and so the feasibility of do it yourself, of accomplishing things minor expertise. Have you heard of the do it yourself movement? The maker movement?
Familiar with the notion of doing something oneself. I didn't realize it was a movement. Past it like that being an extremely sort of vague, unfalsifiable commentary.
Say it was a subculture brought forward by the punk movement of the 1970s.
Okay, yeah, I have no clue about that then.
And something also called maker culture, that like robotics, and I thought it was like a science geek thing that maybe you would have been part of, like that.
Now that I think about it, Wozniak kind of embodies that. He's
maybe
got the
even
timing
you,
right.
like as a high school student or geek, math geek, would be part of that or something. But
Wow,
or you
I'm
just
hardly a
didn't.
math geek.
Okay, so
I mean, I was a math geek, but I don't know if that was what I was known for.
well, if you would have been part of a subculture where like you're going to make things, you were part of like the robotics club.
I don't really see the math geeks and the DIY people as the same people for some reason, but maybe I'm just
You
not
could even be like
initiated.
fashion, like making your own clothes or something like that. But okay, it was related to 3D printing. When we get to the essay, I mentioned the History of America Works, that was actually initiated by President Obama, and the Obama initiative to forward 3D printing in 2012 included a public-private partnership for 3D printing that was called America Makes. So America Makes was at the conference and had a bunch of interviews with the people from 3D printer companies that are members of this public-private partnership. Here was another channel, 3D Printing Nerd, and a reasonably popular channel. And he did videos, and so he's one of the bigger 3D printing channels out there. And he had like television interviews for 3 hours at the conference. And he's got people from various companies demonstrating interesting new 3D printing technologies. So that's 3D Printing Nerd. Props. Mention in my essay, there's also something referred to 4D printing, which is the time dimension, which is a 3D shape that's able to morph into different forms in response to environmental stimulus, with the fourth dimension being time-dependent shape change after printing, programmable matter, and it's a little bit complicated. There's even
I've seen
mathematics.
one of those things come out of a 3D printer before where it's a machine that's sort of self-contained, like its cogs are built into itself. Would that count as a 4D printing, or is that still just 3D printing?
Well, the original maker bots were supposed to be like self-replicating, where you could print parts for your own printer, where you could get like a little, that's why I said it was like a do-it-yourself kit, where you would get a few basic parts, and then you would actually print the rest of your parts for your own printer.
Sort of a iron sharpens iron.
But no, I
I
mean,
think-
this is referring to parts that will actually morph in shape, that due to structural components of the shape will actually change shape, resulting over time, resulting from environmental stimulus like heat. So may or may not be what you're referring to.
I just find with some of these terms that it's like defined relative to some other doctrines, and like 4D printer is sort of, I was just wondering if like, does life count as a 4D printing? That's sort of what I was getting at, but I don't think so. This is just like a,
well, I mean, it refers to something that was used
Machine
additive
type thing.
manufacturing, printing 3D printing technology, but the material nature of it allows it to morph shape after it's been printed.
okay. Well, that seems different than a machine printing its own replacement part.
Yeah, so that's not 4D printing is specifically refers to something that morphs shape after it's already been manufactured. Here is MakerBot, a little thing about metal printing. So like metal printing, I was mentioning it costs like $90,000 for the cheapest model now, and really most of it still costs the different technologies, and I'm going to go over that in the essay. The extrusion, powder bed fusion, binder jetting. There's also direct energy deposition that I don't write about, which is the most expensive. But they have a cheaper now metal printing for as little as $5,000 that basically has metal powder combined with plastic that needs finishing. So you could buy a cheaper 3D printer that only heats it up to 60 degrees Celsius, and then you have to send it to a specialty shop that will sinter it at close to 1400 degrees, and you could get it back in a week. So the various for plastic printing, most plastic melts at less than boiling temperature. So here this method that has a mixture of metal and plastic could just be done at 60 degrees, but metal printers has to be over 1,000 degrees, like welding, old school iron smithing. So it's interesting that there's this now cheaper method where you can't actually really print a part. You could do a partial part that has to be finished. So maybe we'll talk more about that. T-jump.
I think there's a metaphor somewhere in that explanation. That was very good.
T-jump more on racism. and God forbid, this Hakey report, that he gets a call from Asmoder. Asmoder, like
Oh,
I
yeah.
had a run in with Asmoder. Asmoder, I think, is on the run from the law, and he's one of the most wanted guys at like SPLC and ADL, Charlottesville. He's got like open court cases, arrest warrants, but he's still streaming, and he called in to make anti-Semitic comments on the Hagee report where T Jump was there. But T Jump was generally defending liberal progressive positions. Here's the Company Man. I've been watching the Company Man almost every week for over a year. Every Wednesday, they produce a new video that gives a little history of a company, and there's their 5th year anniversary. So props to Company Man. Almost 1.5 million subs. They did YouTube, Netflix, Panera Bread, sometimes the rise and fall and re-rise, and it has a little bit of like financial data. So they have a video every week. There's another channel I watch pretty regularly. Defunctland, I kind of like that, but they're not regular in their videos. That deals mostly with Disney and abandoned amusement parks. But Bright Sun Films also isn't regular, but I watch their content pretty regularly. But Company Man, I like their little weekly clips, so props to them. Arjun had on Chaitanya Karana, who came to Michigan. God forbid he walks with a cane. He was one of the last people in India to suffer from polio. So he had polio as a kid and affected his walking. But he's a great preacher, disciple of Radhanath Swami, and he talked with Arjun about a Jordan Peterson style approach to Bhagavad Gita psychological insights from the Vedas. So a good conversation there. Check that out if you like the Vedic content. Glenn Lowry was on the Lex Friedman show. I watch the Glenn show basically every Friday. Every 2 weeks, he has John McWhorter, the Columbia professor of linguistics. I've taken his the teaching company courses on linguistics and kind of the black guys at Blogging Head, right-leaning guys, critics of woke culture, but economics professor. So he was on the Lex show talking about economics and racial issues. So any regular followers of Lex Friedman or Glenn Lowry could check that out. Ariel Suarez, good to see you. Varun, Don, Steve James, good to see you for a while. I see you've been popping out those videos. Good to hear you from the chat. I don't know if Steve wants to pop on and say something, but you've been doing those videos. Here's Edward Dutton. Can we judge a person's social class from their face? So I forget what the science is of reading personality traits from bodily features. He wrote a book on it. The name is slipping me, but here he's mentioning certain characteristics that cause people to have certain facial features and the ability to judge a person's class largely from their facial features. Lowell Gallen had on Gerard Schroeder. Jennifer asked me last week if think of a dualist or non-materialist scientist, and so I was having a hard time thinking one. But Gerard Schroeder, the famous author of God in Genesis. So a little interesting talking to Lowell. Didn't work out working together with him, but he's still going. So I occasionally check his channel. I maybe watched like 1 out of 5 of his videos, but I watched that one with Gerard Schroeder. Okay, so here's the consciousness stuff, and I got a good song coming up also. So I've shared this channel before. active interface lab, which is the main laboratory of Carl Friston, who has said it probably has the most mainstream um, materialistic version on consciousness that doesn't require anything quantum, and largely based on Bayesian analysis and Markov blankets and chains. And they've been doing this for a few years, a weekly like paper review podcast. Carl Friston comes on as a guest every month. And so I shared this before. I hadn't really started watching it. And that was nice PowerPoints. But so here were some interesting papers. Here's a step-by-step tutorial. Hey, George, Daryl, good to see you. This one might be too big to share. So this is a step-by-step tutorial on active interface and its application to empirical data. Here is perception as hypothesis cicadas as an experiment. Cicadas refers to eye movement, the quick succession of eye movement, and applying this like Bayesian analysis. I think I had a slideshow. So here's also this Markov blankets of life: autonomy, active interference, and the free energy principle. So the active interface brain, which is probably the most mainstream of materialistic consciousness theory, is based largely on Bayesian analysis and Markov blankets. So what's a Markov blanket? It's complicated, so I got a slide here that talks a little bit about it. So let me do